Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Rise of Justice Movement, the podcast. My name is Zachary Mallory, and I am the founder and the host of the Rise of Justice Movement and the Rise of Justice Movement, the podcast. All right, so this is going to be a good one. I am excited. I think I say that a lot because, Gwen, we've gotten really good at doing these interviews. If I do, as I say that, I can't even get the words out. If I do say so myself, we've gotten really good at this. I am fairly new whenever it comes to podcasting, but I'm not new to whenever it comes to public speaking and sharing my thoughts, sharing my mind, and speaking my mind. I've been a public speaker for over 16 years. The I'm not the person to be on a podcast. And whenever, you and I came up with the idea, like, we want to do a podcast. And I said, Glenn, do you know how much that's going to take to do it? You're like, oh, we can do it. We got the capacity. We got this. We got that. Holy shit. It has been the experience. And our guest today is no stranger to whatever comes to podcasting. But Gwen, welcome to the podcast, my friend. As always, my co-founder, my co-host on this podcast, or one of my co-hosts on this podcast. I have two others. And I think, we've been working together for over 2 years, almost 2 years, which is
Yeah, almost.
insane. It is insane. And it's been quite the journey. It's been quite the experience. We've met some incredible people, including our guest today, which you already knew, but I have a very utmost respect for this guest. And Gwen, I will let you introduce and I'll let you take over from here.
Hello, everybody. Thank you, Zachary, for the introduction. And always so happy to be on our podcast, Rise Above Justice Movement podcast. And today we have one of my favorite people, favorite humans, and one of my good friends, Matt Gordon. And just Matt, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me. I'm really excited to be here.
Yeah, we've been looking forward to this for a long time. So, I kind of just want to like dive right in with the first question.
Let's do
And
it.
Marcus actually wanted me to ask you how long it took you to grow your beard.
This
Just a little
iteration of the
icebreaker.
beard, this iteration of the beard, which I have braided for the event here. Let me,
Oh, he braided it.
I
Oh,
got it,
nice.
Nice.
Oh,
got
yeah.
it braided for the event. This one is going on 3 years of growth now.
Wow. Oh my
Yeah, is
gosh. Yeah. Because
that
I
right?
remember we did a video. I don't know because maybe it has been 3 years because we did a video together
No,
after
no, no, no,
the
no,
first
no.
trending up. Mhm.
2 years. 2 years. This is 2 years.
Okay. That
Yeah,
makes more sense
that
because
makes
we
so
did a
much more
video
sense.
about, yeah, about the draft and bodily autonomy and how everything's connected. And you had it short then. And I was like, whoa,
Yeah,
there's Matt.
yeah, yeah. No, this is 2 years of growth. I don't know. Time's weird. It feels like it's been 62 years since the first of the year. So
I know. We're recording this in May of 2026, and I just yeah, has it even been 2 years since the election? I don't even know.
no, it hasn't even been a year and a half.
Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah,
I was just
it
about to
has,
say it hasn't even been a year and a half. June will be that year
y'all.
and a half
My
mark.
face just got so hot hearing that. I
I
was like,
know.
oh my God.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Immediate
wild.
indigestion.
Yeah. I remember one of my favorites. So I met Matt at the first Trending Up conference. It was 2024.
Yep.
And Matt has this energy that's just like, you just love him. Like, it's just one of the most lovable people and one of the most genuine people. So we quickly became friends through Mandy, Potty Mouth, Pollyanna, who
Mhm.
we love. And yeah, this is going to be such a great way to get to know you, Matt, and for our listeners. So I'd love to just start off by asking you, like, what's your background? Where do you come from, and what led you to the advocacy you do today?
So my dad was in the Marine Corps. So I was a Marine Corps brat as well. We traveled around quite a bit. I was born in Kentucky, but moved around. My first day of school ever was in Amman, Jordan. Uh, and then back and forth from here to Dhahran, Saudi Arabia, back to the States. And um, I joined the Marine Corps right out of high school. I was a senior in high school when 9/11 happened, and like a lot of the country, I felt this hyper patriotism to go and serve. And so I joined up. Uh, joined the Marine Corps following in my dad's footsteps. And then deployed to Iraq and Afghanistan while I was in the military. Finished out my service as a rifle pistol coach at Weapons Training Battalion in Quantico, Virginia. I was medically retired in 2011, and me and my wife and kids moved to upstate New York. And up until that point, I was actually fairly conservative in my views and thoughts. I had grown up in a very Republican household, and that's all I ever knew. And so it wasn't until I got to New York and started participating in community theater here in upstate New York that I started to realize that the United States that I grew up in wasn't the United States that everybody grew up in. And so, just listening to people's experiences, lived experiences, and their education, and learning more about the actual history of this country made me realize that there are a lot of problems. There are a lot of good things about this country, but there are so many problematic ways that we've got to where we're at right now. And the fact that I didn't know a lot of it really bothered me. So I started educating myself little by little. And then the pandemic happened. Like most everybody else, I jumped onto TikTok and kind of took my activism from just supporting my friends locally here to a, more national presence. And my first viral video on TikTok was me sitting in a Dunkin' Donuts drive-through saying, as a combat veteran, I think you're a piece of shit if you vote for Donald Trump. And that kind of took off. And then, fast forward, to where we're at now. And I just want to clarify something real quick. When I met you at Trending Up in 2024, I was already such a huge fan of yours that it was Mandy that had to convince me to go and say hi, because I had a straight up panic attack when I saw you in the hotel there. I was like, is that Gwen Levey over there? And Mandy was like, yeah, she's awesome. I was like, oh my God. I was like, yeah. So just wanted to clarify that for everybody. Like I was awestruck. I was starstruck when Gwen walked in. I was like, I know who that is. That's amazing. So,
Well, the feeling's mutual. I mean, like I'm such a fan and I admire you so much, Matt, and I'm so glad to call you a friend. And you've helped me through a lot of things, and yeah, just wild times for sure. And I think it's also important. You're someone who, you have a very unique experience being a veteran, or your experience is unique to you, but I know there are a lot, of course, veterans who've served and have gone through a lot of similar things. But I think this would be a good time to talk about, you know, mental health, and when you come back from serving your country and seeing all that you saw, and I think this would be a good time to just kind of talk about like what's in at the time that you came back, like what was in place for you, like in terms of mental health, like resources that the government provides? Is it something easily accessible? And if you don't mind, like giving the date you came back to, so we have frame of reference, because I know things are different now and getting even, getting cut and all of
mhm.
these things. So, like if you don't mind telling us that your experience coming home after serving.
Hey,
Yeah,
Matt, really quickly before you dive in,
sure.
this is actually a really good conversation because May is also Mental Health Awareness Month.
Oh,
Hmm.
wow,
And
yeah.
I believe now is a critical time to talk about this from the veteran community because veterans are oftentimes left out of the conversation.
Yep.
Me and Matt were talking before we started that my grandfather was an Air Force veteran. And while he didn't have any like diagnosable mental health, you could definitely tell there was still
Sure.
just like the treatment that veterans get or the lack thereof.
Yeah.
And
Right.
even like through the VA, because the VA is, well, it kind of goes back and forth. The one that we have in
Yeah.
Kansas City is not necessarily the absolute greatest by any stretch.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it's still, that
Hmm.
that same system. But
Yeah.
didn't mean to kind of jump in there for a second, but I
No,
just wanted to.
it's important to point out that on top of being Mental Health Awareness Month, it's also Military
Yes.
Appreciation Month
Yep.
this month as well. So
Yep.
the two go hand in hand. So I deployed to Afghanistan in 2004, and got back in early fall of 2004. So I was there for about 9 months, 9-month deployment. And then deployed to Ramadi, Iraq in September of 2006. And then I was there until May of 2007 in Ramadi, Iraq. And at that time, I was a part of the surge in Iraq. Ramadi, where I was considered the most dangerous city in the world at the time. It was chaotic. When you get back from deployment and you're still on active duty, you have access to just about any resource that you want. So I was in therapy when I got back because I was having some really bad anger issues. I was also unbelievably hyper vigilant. I was having a hard time sleeping.
Mm.
And not so much nightmares, but just couldn't fall asleep. Like my body literally was like, if you cannot fall asleep, falling asleep is bad.
Is it kind of similar to insomnia?
Kinda, yeah, but it's not. I've never been diagnosed with insomnia. It's more like the hypervigilance is so notched up that trying to relax just wasn't happening. So there was no idea in my mind that I was safe where I was at, that I could just breathe, I could be at peace. So I was always on edge, to the point where you just can't fall asleep when your adrenaline is going all the time. You don't sleep. I think at that point I was averaging, I don't know, maybe 2.5 to 3 hours of sleep a night.
Yeah.
It was rough. So when you're on active duty, like I was saying, when you're on active duty, you have access to the entirety of the military healthcare system. So if you need therapy, there are therapists available. If you need, some kind of specialized treatment, that's available to you. So I did have access to all that. When I got out, that kind of went away. I talk about this quite a bit, how the VA system is kind of set up for failure.
Mm.
And it's never been adequately funded the way that it needs to be. It's never been adequately staffed the way that it needs to be. There's
No matter who's in office, it
it
doesn't
doesn't
matter.
matter. This is a bipartisan, issue, because I actually talked about this last night with a group of people, local voters here in my area, that we need to reframe the way that we think about care for veterans afterwards as like an additional expense, when really it's just a continuing expense of the cost of war.
Yeah.
That like you just because I'm back here at the house doesn't mean that there's not things that I did and experienced that I need help with, that the government promised me that I would have services available to me for.
Mm-hmm.
So the VA system, and let me just put this way: the people that work at the VA, I have the utmost respect for, because it is a thankless job at the VA. In my little county here in upstate New York, we have one VA outpatient clinic that services somewhere between 6,000 and 7,000 veterans in this county. And we have one nurse practitioner, 2 nurses, and 1 clinical therapist for all of them. That's it. That's all we have. 7,000 people, and there's 1 doctor and 1 clinical therapist that's available for us here.
It's kind of like a medical desert.
It almost, yeah.
Yeah.
And I kind of talked about this a little bit too. That's on purpose. This isn't a mistake. The VA system has been demonized and pointed to as a reason why the federal government shouldn't be in charge of healthcare for decades. And it's all to continue on with our for-profit healthcare system here in the United States. But also, if they make the VA bad enough, then they can privatize the VA. And there are billions and billions of dollars on the backs of disabled veterans that are not going into the pockets of healthcare CEOs that they would really like to get their disgusting little hands on.
It's so cruel. And you would think
Yeah.
that, people who serve our country deserve every resource available to them in every stride, in every way the government sh that we should be taking care of our veterans. And it's just
We should
like
be
to
taking care of
hear,
everybody, you
yeah,
know?
oh,
I
of
make that
course,
point
yeah,
all the time. I was like, you want to know how you take care, you want to know how you make sure veterans have health care is you make sure everybody has health care. Like, I mean,
absolutely.
it's not a hard system to figure out. We're like the only freaking developed nation in
Yeah.
the world that
With
doesn't
medical
do this.
deserts.
Yeah, with the highest maternal mortality rate, and you've got more veterans that have committed suicide than we've lost in both Iraq and Afghanistan in 20 something years, and exponentially more. Um, and it's one of those things where you know they're I'm kind of all over the place. I'm kind of jumbled.
No, please, you're great.
Talking about the mental health and the veteran suicide epidemic that's happening. Uh, that's partly because the VA doesn't have adequate staffing for mental health providers within the system itself. But more on top of that, the majority of veterans are men, and when it comes to men's mental health, there is a really bad stigma about
Mhm.
men asking for help. It's seen as weak. It's seen as something that makes you less masculine. When in reality, I wouldn't be here right now had I not asked for help.
Yeah.
I would have been a statistic. I would have been one of those statistics. We probably never would have met because I was in a really bad place for a very long time. And it was me realizing that, there's no way that I'm going to pull myself out of this myself, that I needed to reach out to somebody that had a, objective view about what's going on. Somebody that doesn't have, any skin in the game to what I'm experiencing every day. And they can just objectively look at what's going on and say, let's figure out ways to make this easier for you, you know? And if I hadn't have done that, I probably wouldn't be sitting here talking to you right now.
What was that moment like for you where you're like, I need to ask for help? Was there a certain moment where it's just like, mhm,
Yeah. Um, it's kind of a shitty memory, but I think it's important to talk about because a lot of people I know experience it. I was uh at our old house when we first moved up here and in the throes of it. And I don't even remember what kind of triggered me. But my anger level went from 0 to 1,000,000. And I was just
mhm,
seeing red and I was yelling and screaming and I was just, losing my mind. Um, and I remember looking over and seeing my kids and just the tears that they had on their face because of what I was doing. And it was in that moment that I was like, I am not well. I am not okay. And I actually it left the house and went for a walk to kind of just breathe some fresh air and recompose myself, and then came back and sat down with my wife and I was like, I need help. I need help. I think it was the next day that I went over to the VA outpatient clinic here, and was like, I am in desperate need of some therapy.
mhm.
And to their credit, they got me in pretty quick. So, it was, when you're talking about things like this, there's always a time where it's like, this is the worst that it's ever been. And it's that kind of like rock bottom moment where you just realize that no matter what you're doing, it's not enough. And that doesn't make you weak or less than, or incapable of caring for yourself. It's just recognizing that you don't have the tools. Just like, I can't yank an engine out of my car if I needed to. I got to take it to a mechanic because I don't have the tools to take care of what needs to be taken care of. I look at mental health the same way. I don't have the tools to actually, make sure that I wake up tomorrow or get through the pain that I'm feeling in the moment. And that's where, your mental health mechanic comes in, and they can say, well, we just need to yank your carburetor a little bit and decrease your engine and get you back up to, set your timing belt right and just get you
Yeah.
reset, and that's the way that I looked at it. And, I haven't looked back. I have good days and bad days. It's that, you're never cured of this stuff, but you find out, that you're able to move past it quicker and quicker each time you experience something. So
Well, thank you so much for sharing. And I know, yeah, that's something we hear all the time, well, and my dad talks about it, like men, we weren't allowed to show emotion and
mhm.
ask for help. And my dad's, almost 70, and he's just starting to go to therapy, because it was always looked at as, I'm being weak and all these things, especially the stigma that's put on men. So I think I
Yeah,
really appreciate you sharing that. And I know there's people out there who are listening that your story is helping them so much. And we are a coalition of survivors, and you are a survivor. And I think everything you're saying is very relatable. And even though our traumas may not be the same, the PTSD being triggered, the suicidal thoughts or attempts,
mhm.
and all the things, the depression, like the good days, the bad days, it all is connected. And um,
Absolutely.
just really appreciate you sharing that and your
Of course.
experience. Um, so I also want to talk about like some of the, you talk about therapy
Mhm.
and some of the tools that you've had. And I don't want to call Faith a tool, but she is a special, special, um, like a soulmate,
Oh yeah.
that helps. So Faith is your service dog,
Mhm.
who is just wonderful. Can you tell our listeners what was that process like for getting Faith, and
Mhm.
what that looked like, and if there's anyone out there that this is something they need as well, how could they maybe go about getting or being part of a service dog program as well?
Sure. Yeah. So I actually went through a veterans organization here in Central New York called Clear Path for Veterans. They have a dogs to vets program where they bring the dogs into their facility and start training them from the time that they're legally allowed to get them from their mother. And they start training them up to become service animals. For like the first 6 months, it's just basic tasks and obedience training. And then they usually go out to a foster family where they'll continue their task training once a week at the Clear Path facility. And then throughout the week, the foster family will work on those tasks with the dog in a home, out in public. They'll start, acclimating them to loud noises and whatnot so that they're not reactive, um, and keeping them focused. And about a year into the training, they pair them up with a veteran. And then the veteran will take over training for that dog with the assistance of ClearPath.
Mm.
And so that, they continue on that for about another 3 months of the dog getting used to living with the veteran that they're going to be with for the rest of their life, and the tasks that they've already learned. And then after 3 months of training, so now we're up to, I don't know what, like 15 months. at this point. The dog goes back to Clear Path for a month, and the trainers will sit down with the specific veteran and say, what do you need this dog to do specifically for you? And you kind of lay out to them like what issues you have, the things that you would need help with. And then they do a month-long intensive training with the dog, just getting them up to speed with the tasks that you specifically need. And then the dog goes back to you for another 4 months of training for those specific tasks. And then they graduate from the program. ClearPath for Veterans offers this for free
Wow.
to the veterans. And while the dog is in training before they graduate from the program, if you need food or any kind of vet care, they take care of all of that as well. So
Wow.
you can just show up and say, hey, I need another bag of food. They'll load it into your car. And then you come back home and now you've got another 50-pound bag of food. And whenever like the annual checkups happen, you just take it down there, say, hey, I'm one of the ClearPath dogs. And then ClearPath gets the bill and they pay it while you're in training. On top of that, after they do graduate, obviously then the vet bills and the food come on to me. But if at any point there's any kind of additional task or training that I would need Faith to do, I can go back down there at any time for free, and they will help me train her to this new task that I need. It's a wonderful program. They're fantastic people. And obviously they're kind of local here to central New York, but there's
Mm.
programs like that everywhere. Um,
Is it a
um,
state program, federal program?
it's a
It's
private
just an
program.
organization.
Yeah, this
Wow.
is just an
Yeah.
organization that was like, we see this need that veterans are asking for. And instead of waiting for the bureaucratic red tape to get cut and being able to do it, they're like, no, screw it. We're just going to do it ourselves. They run solely off of donations. And the dogs themselves they all come from, like good pedigree, like service animals, a lot of, and so they're just, it's a great program. But there are programs like that across the nation that will offer these types of services to veterans. And I will say that, like, Faith is like, obviously she's a service dog, she's not a pet, but she has absolutely changed my life. um just aside from the fact that, like, whenever I need her to do a task, whether it's I'm having a panic attack or I'm feeling too anxious or whatnot, and she completes her task for whatever I'm experiencing, just her presence is calming. There's something about dogs, and just the unconditional excitement and love that they show to
Yeah.
you that is ridiculously healing.
Yeah.
And I recommend, like, I don't care who you are or what you're dealing with. If you need to feel better, like, get yourself a service dog. Get,
Yeah.
figure out, how you can. And there's no national curriculum for service animals or whatnot. There's nothing. As long as you've got a dog and you can train it to a task that you need, then that's a service dog. You don't have to go through a big expensive program if you don't want to. Um, but yeah, I tell all of my veteran friends, I was like, listen, say what you will, but service dogs are 100% the way to go. Yeah.
Well, I wholeheartedly agree. We're all dog people here, and yeah, just there's something special. And I remember I'd never seen a service dog in action until at Trending Up. And I think it was one of the events where it was the big room and there was a
Mm-hmm.
lot of people. And, I couldn't tell that anything was going on within you, but Faith immediately went up and, started, kissing your hand and just like checking in with you. I just thought it was so amazing. And yeah, and I mean, Winnie's not a service dog, my dog, but when I've had emotional moments, she's definitely come up to me and made sure I'm okay. And it's really just incredible. And yeah, I'm really grateful that there are programs like, can you say the program one more time?
Yeah, it's a Clear Path for Veterans.
Clear Path for Veterans. Okay,
Yeah.
we'll make sure to amplify the work they do because it's so important.
Yeah.
And I know there's a lot of people that have different kinds of PTSD
Hmm.
that have emotional support animals, but the service dogs really just goes above and beyond. Um,
Oh
and
yeah.
yeah, yeah.
You,
Hmm.
one of the things that the Healing and CPTSD Foundation is working on is obviously recognizing CPTSD. Matt, you, me, and Glenn are the prime examples of why the APA, the
Hmm.
American Psychological Association, needs to recognize that CPTSD is a diagnosable, or,
Oh yeah.
is diagnosable
Hmm.
because right now, even in like the DSM-6 that'll be coming out, I think it's 2027. It doesn't have CPTSD as like a diagnostic.
Right.
It just has that just the PTSD. But people like me who have experienced a lot of traumatic experiences over time, and Gwen and Matt, like those like us, but there's millions of others that
Hmm.
also do. And I think recognizing CPTSD actually as it actually is, and how complex mental health actually is. I think that is how we start combating that stigma by calling it exactly what it is.
Hmm.
And we need to continue pushing forward in that. In 2026, we shouldn't, again, like a lot of other conversations, we shouldn't even be having this conversation. It's literally common sense. But, in this room, common sense exists. But in a lot of those spaces in Washington, they clearly do not.
Correct.
And not just in Washington, but also in our state legislatures. Gwen, you're in Tennessee, which is a whole separate battle in itself. I'm here in Kansas. I grew up in Missouri, so I'm no stranger whenever it comes to shenanigans either. But I just wanted to add that in there. They do
Yeah.
some incredible work. Danny is the leader and does some very impactful work. We do some collaborations with them and amplify it. We're a part of the CPTSD Alliance. Like, there's a lot
Hmm.
that, I want to continue getting in. Mental health and suicide prevention is my top priority. I bring that approach to everything that I do. That's how I got my start in advocacy work, by
Yeah.
serving on boards and committees and councils. And, and then you also tie in like HIV prevention in that. Like, I used to serve on the Ryan White Council in Kansas City. So these are really big topics for me. And if you really think about it, everything that you have talked about today, Matt, and I know there'll be more. I know Gwen has some more questions for you, but I wanted to chime in really quick. I don't do that very often, but it's like this is a good. Well, I do, but Gwen,
I didn't say anything.
behave. Put yourself on mute. but um, but yeah, I think just recognizing that mental health is just as important as your physical health. I think that
100%.
is the key takeaway from all of this, and we need to do a better job at protecting our most vulnerable and including our veteran community. Um,
Absolutely.
Matt, I don't know if you're familiar with him, but Jason Kander here in Missouri is a badass veteran himself. He is working on expanding like the tiny home project to address homelessness within the veteran community.
Okay.
And we have a tiny home village. If you
Oh,
ever
nice.
find your way in Kansas City, I would love to connect you and
Oh
have
yeah,
you
absolutely.
see it, because a lot of our population of the unhoused, and I try to steer away from saying like homeless because it has like a very like
It does. Yeah, yeah.
negative context to it. But the unhoused community, a lot of our unhoused are veterans, and
Oh yeah.
we
Yeah.
see that a lot, and they're dying on the streets by violence, by a number of other, they're freezing to death quite literally,
Yeah.
and
Hmm.
it's deeply alarming. I've told this story, and I'll be brief, and then I'll pop it back to Gwen. But I used to work at a shelter here in Kansas City,
Hmm.
and there was a gentleman that came in that was a veteran. And at that time, this would have been during like COVID times.
Okay.
So obviously everything is going haywire. Just a lot's going on. And we didn't have any beds. And there is nothing worse than having to tell a veteran that, I'm sorry, you're going to have to sleep at the park across the street. That is
Mhm.
the hardest conversation I've ever had to have in my life. That was the hardest thing up till now. And I've seen a lot of things. I've confronted police officers, but I have to say that that was probably the roughest conversation I've had. And then he kept coming back each night. And I was working 5 days a week. I worked overnights, so he would keep coming back. And then there was one time that, oh God, I'm gonna tear up again. There was one time that he came back in, and I was able to tell him we finally had a spot for him. And you could just see everything just change. He was like, okay, I can finally take a shower. I can finally eat. I can finally, it just pisses me off to no fucking end that we had to deny him. We had to
Yeah.
turn him away. That literally devastated me. And I told my mom, I was like, I'm quitting this fucking job. I can't do this anymore because these systems are built exactly how they're designed exactly how they're built. They're not made for anybody other than those top fucking 1%.
Yep.
Donald Trump has never had a struggle a day in his fucking life, but yet continues to cut these fucking critical programs that would help people. Like that gentleman. He had to sleep in the fucking park across the street
Mhm.
from a shelter that's supposed to be here to serve and to protect him. That is what we are supposed to do, and we are failing people. These are not new issues. This is a systemic failure, and it is a policy choice.
100%.
It is literally a policy choice. Everything is a policy choice. Gun violence, domestic violence, everything is a policy choice. And whenever we protect the top 1% and the poor and the working class, which this country was fucking built on,
Hmm.
what are we doing? What are we saying? Why? And we have these No Kings protests. Don't get me wrong. Yes, that's great. What's next? They need
Hmm.
to have an action to them. They need to
Hmm.
have an action. I love what Flair is doing in DC because they're actually, and Matt, I know you've been kind of working with Flair too, and like Jolly Good Ginger and like some of the
Hmm.
others. But I just wanted to just share that because that story hits me every single time
Yeah.
because it puts the reality into who these systems are actually working for or the lack thereof.
Correct. Yep. Who we prioritize in this society. And it's not the people that need help. We always prioritize the people that have 7 or 8 zeros in their bank account.
Yeah,
Always.
yeah. I mean,
Mhm.
speaking of rage and what people can do, especially, I mean, would you say that things at the VA are getting worse, especially under this administration, Matt? And
Oh, 100%. Yeah.
yeah, I mean,
100%.
could you tell some of our listeners some of the things that are happening under this administration, and then also like how they can channel like that rage and just feeling like what can they do? Like
Yeah.
what's your advice to listeners who are like, I want to get involved and help our veterans and just our people, our Americans in general that are suffering.
Yeah. So the VA 100% is rapidly being dismantled by this administration. They're pushing hard for the community care program, which was set up under the Obama administration, which I want to clarify is not a bad program. It definitely provides services, especially for veterans that are in rural areas that are not within, relative driving distance to VA hospitals. Right. So community care absolutely has a place and doesn't need to go away. However, with that being said, there is a push within this administration to make that kind of the default setting for veterans instead of bringing in the providers to the VA specifically and having them be a part of the VA system. They want to farm out veteran health care to private doctors, which again, nothing against the private doctors that are out there, the civilian doctors that are out there, but veterans healthcare specifically is unique in that, veterans make up like 1% of the population, right? We make up like 1% of the population. Or something like that. I don't know the actual number. But it's not a lot. But our care is complex and very unique. And it's not things that civilian doctors will have to deal with on a daily basis out in civilian practices, which is why when veterans are being seen by VA doctors who have been training on veteran specific ailments and issues, we get better. We are more satisfied with our care than we are when we get put into the community care program. Again, community care program has a place. It's a good program. It shouldn't be the default. What we should be defaulting to is adequately staffing the VA with doctors and nurses who have done some kind of training on the specific ailments that veterans are dealing with, right? When a veteran loses a limb in combat, it's different than when a civilian loses a limb out for whatever reason in, civilian life. I'm not saying it can't be just as traumatic. It's different trauma, though. And there are different things that have to be taken into account when dealing with a veteran who's dealing with those specific ailments versus a civilian that's dealing with those specific ailments. Lung cancer, bladder cancer, and everything coming from burn pits and the Camp Lejeune water crisis of the 80s, or like the 60s, 70s, and 80s. Like those are all things that are very specific to the veteran community and things that are only affecting, predominantly only affecting the veteran community. And it's not that civilian doctors can't provide good care. It's just that this isn't the type of care that they provide all the time, right? So when we're talking about the VA system itself, the one thing that every veteran that I know we'll talk about, and we'll complain about the things in the VA that deserve to be complained about. We're not, we don't just blindly love the VA in every aspect. It's just like anywhere else. But the care that we get at the VA is uniquely tailored to the traumas and ailments that we have taken on ourselves from our time in service. And again, I keep saying it just because I want to make sure that I'm very clear on this. This is nothing against civilian doctors at all. Nothing against doctors in general, right? It's just that there's specific types of care that veterans are looking for, that veterans need, that we're not able to get just anywhere, right? So what can people do to help with that? How can people get involved with that? Well, talk to your veteran friends and tell them to start speaking out. Tell them to start, saying like, hey, I'm a veteran. I get my care at the VA, and I have seen the level of care continuously drop off since Doge came in and fired a bunch of nurses, since Doge came in and just refused to fill open positions, since Doge came in and cut 1,000 people from the Veterans Crisis Line, since Doge came in, since the Trump administration came in and just continued to fire veterans. Like, we've seen the consequences of those actions. Again, like I said at the top of the program, there's 7,000 veterans that are in my county here that would be able to get services at the VA outpatient clinic here that only has one nurse practitioner and one clinical therapist for 7,000 people. That's not manageable. There's a high turnover rate at the VA because they get burned out because they're not adequately staffed and supported. So calling your representatives is another great, calling your federal representatives and senators, calling your state representatives and senators, and telling them to really start advocating for adequate resources and staffing going to the VA system to take care of these veterans. And the last thing that we need to do is just continuing to reframe how we talk about veterans care. again, like I said earlier, this isn't an additional expense. This is a continuation of the cost of war. We spent $9 trillion between Iraq and Afghanistan over 20 plus years. We can spend $1 trillion now to care for the people that you sent over to fight the war that you started, right? And so, those are things, reframing the way that we see veterans care as a cost of war and not an additional expense, and advocating either through calling your representatives or getting veterans to actually start speaking out on it. That's really the best way to go about it.
I mean, again, like just hearing these things, and I've learned so much from you, Matt, and just hearing how, just again, how we're treating our veterans, and just, oh man, it enrages me. So it's good to hear things like actionable things people can do that, because of course, like I think a lot of people would say, if you were capable to donate, of course. But like these are things that you're listing that's like it's not going to cost money to do these
Literally.
things. It might be uncomfortable,
Mm-hmm.
painful, all of these things that I'm sure you've had to experience in your own life. But I think we have a lot of empathetic listeners that I'm sure are connected to veterans and people
Mm-hmm.
who have served. So um, thank you for saying all of that. And is there anything else you would want to add about being a veteran? And I know it's just, and we're going to continue on to other parts of your identity and who you are, which I'm excited to dive into. But if there's anything else you'd like to leave our listeners with about your veteran experience, please feel free.
Just like every other community that has ever existed, the veteran community is not a monolith. Veterans are not all crazy, MAGA, conservative chuckle fucks. All right. There are a lot of people that are veterans that actually understand that we are better as a nation with immigrants, with an empowered Black voter base, with indigenous nations actually getting the things that this nation has promised them, speaking up and speaking out. Veterans have a platform and a voice that this nation just gives us because we decided to throw on a uniform for a certain amount of time. And not every veteran is going to go out there and be an idiot and fly a, Donald Trump flag and, put $100 deposit on a phone that they're never going to fucking get. But,
Gosh, you've seen those videos, right? Of people being like, "Where's my phone?
I know. Yeah. I
Chuck,
love
where's
them.
my phone?" And I'm
I know.
just
I love
like,
them.
God,
I put them on. It's what
it's
I go to sleep
Sappho.
to.
Fuck around and find out, y'all.
It's
Like,
what I go to sleep to. I just have a compilation of those people crying about where their phone's at, and it just helps me soothe the sleep every night.
oh my goodness. Well, thank you again for sharing your experience and all the resources where people can, reach out and just like again, people know they're not alone.
Yeah.
And speaking of being brave and confronting parts of our identities that some people may look down upon, but we embrace now. We're healing, we're loving ourselves, we're learning to love ourselves. You have come out recently as being a member of the LGBTQIA plus community,
Mhm.
and you came out as asexual.
Mhm.
And what was that journey like for you? And what has being part of this community been like for you personally?
So that journey was a confusing one for me.
Yeah, I
Um,
relate to that. I was confused for my own journey. Yeah.
yeah, I didn't really recognize what was going on, and actually, it was talking through it with my therapist that she was like, "Hey, you know, maybe this is what's going on," and I was like, "Oh, I didn't even know what that was." She's like,
Hmm.
maybe you're, experiencing like asexuality, and that's kind of where you're at. And I was like, that's a weird word you just said to me. What the fuck does that mean? Uh, so, she kind of explained it to me. I was like, yeah, okay, that kind of makes sense. It, like anything else, once you have a name that you can put to something, you just feel a little better about how you feel, right? Like now there's a name to it. There's something that I can, kind of direct my attention to and educate myself a little bit more about me as a person, because now there's something that I can, labels are labels, right? I mean, like, some labels are okay. Some labels are okay, y'all.
Yeah.
And like, actually having a word to put to it gave me a little bit of comfort. It made me feel like I wasn't just going crazy, and that I, actually felt like I was just a fucking human being. I was just a regular person, experiencing this different type of sexuality. Um, as far as like my acceptance in the community, there's been a lot of strides made by the LGBTQ community to accept asexuals, because for a long time we didn't really feel like we belonged. And there's still some holdouts there. I get into an argument quite a bit on the internet with a guy who doesn't think that asexuals should be a part of the community, because our struggle isn't like that of the lesbian or gay or trans communities, which
Well, yeah,
I
I mean,
agree with, right? Which I say, like,
well,
I agree with the struggles of the trans community, the gay and lesbian community, and the bisexual community. Like, it's not the same for the asexuals, but the asexual community is struggling in different ways. That doesn't
yeah,
lessen the struggle, right? That doesn't lessen anybody's struggle. And being able to be accepted into the community, which I want to just clarify, the overwhelming majority of people accept asexuals in the community.
yeah.
I just want to clarify that, like, the
Well,
overwhelming majority.
yeah, and if I could just say, like, I feel that way being bisexual, like, there's still people in the community, like friends that are, like, oh, you're actually pansexual, like, you're not,
Right.
bisexuality is not true, like, it's actually offensive to me. And I'm like, well, I've talked about with my therapist, like, all these things. And so again, I understand, like, the you're in the community, but you don't fully belong in some to
Mhm.
some people, but the majority of people embrace you. So yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
You know what,
Yeah.
Quinn? I'm gonna chime in here just for a second. And oftentimes, whenever people say that they're uncomfortable with their own sexuality or their own gender identity, and I came out in, holy shit, it's been that long ago. I didn't realize it, but the day that I actually came out was National Coming Out Day,
Oh
and
wow.
which is, it's either October 11th or October 12th, like one of those 2 days. Because Spirit Day is like right around in that area too. But I came out, and I eventually came out to my parents with a suicide note, and that was, my mom's like, okay, we're gonna go get you help, and that was the first time I ever spent the night or a couple nights in a psychiatric hospital, and it actually changed my life a little bit. And
Mhm.
then I went in two more times after that, and then I became a survivor of sexually assaulted at the age of 17, and that kind of opened my eyes like quite a bit. And then I got in contact with a pastor, and I was subjected to electroconvulsive therapy, which people literally state, oh, they don't use that, they don't use that, they don't use that. They do, but in a way that is not the way that I experienced it. Because the point of it, and it's a form of conversion therapy whenever it is
Yeah.
used as such, and it was to change my sexual orientation. And the point of it was to associate pain with my attraction to the same sex,
Mm.
is what the goal was. But guess what? It didn't fucking work. Um,
Shocking.
Wow, gosh, shocker, yeah.
I mean, I'm gonna be real. I moved to Minneapolis, and well, you know, I my 21st birthday, I got drunk in the upstairs of a gay bar, surrounded by drag queens, and I don't remember a fucking thing from it. But my mom always told me, she's like, you know what, you only turn 21 once, because I called her, and she was telling me happy birthday, and I was living in Minneapolis at that time, and like I said, went to a drag bar, and the rest of the fucking blur. And she's like, well, and I called her the next morning and I was like, I don't remember a fucking thing that happened last night. She said, well, you did it right. She always told me, she's like, well, whenever you turn 21, you only turn 21 once. And well, you know, she's like, if you don't remember it, well, you did it right.
Right.
I don't remember a damn thing from it. But I made a lot of friends with like drag queens. I met a lot of the RuPaul queens. I met, and I know some of them very personally on a personal level. And you know, in 2017, that was the first time I became a youth ambassador with the Human Rights Campaign,
Hmm.
and traveling to DC and Orlando and Anaheim and speaking at conferences. And I was with somebody that all of us know in the LGBTQ plus community, which is Jazz Jennings.
Mhm.
And she was on Barbara Walters at a very young age. But I think getting to hear her speak in person was definitely a unique experience. But all that to say, us LGBTQ people, and it started with a brick against police brutality by a Black trans woman in New York
Yep.
City.
Mhm.
Stonewall Inn is more than just a gay bar and a drag bar. It is a monument, and it
Mhm.
needs to be treated as such. The attacks on the LGBTQ plus community um, are horrific. My mom has always been my biggest rock and always been my biggest ally, and I wouldn't say that she has. I would say that she hasn't always understood me, and there's times that she still doesn't. But she's not going to force me to change who I am.
Sure.
And
Yeah.
she's never done that. And
Mhm.
I learned at a younger age who Matthew Shepard was. And
Mm.
I was like, I don't want that to happen to me. I don't want that to happen to me, my friends. Unfortunately, it has happened to several of my friends. Several of them have died by suicide. Several of them have been shot and killed, specifically
Mhm.
being who they are and what they are. Um, but I think it's definitely a rough time. But I think conversations like this just give me a glimpse of hope, and it
Mhm.
gives me a glimpse
Yeah.
that not all of us are assholes. I mean, well,
I mean, I'm an asshole, but just like it's directed.
Lovable
I'm going to
asshole.
say it's definitely directed, and I would say I'm an asshole with a purpose because I have a
There you go.
purpose to
There you go.
kind of
Yeah.
like. I don't even see it as more of like an asshole. I just see it as
Yeah.
accountability.
I was gonna say, I
Mhm.
feel like both of y'all are like not assholes to me, but just like,
Oh,
I
not
mean,
to
I
you.
understand.
No,
Not to
never,
me, never.
never.
I was going to say that
You guys have you got hearts of gold is what I'm trying to say.
you know,
Underneath all the
sometimes
rage.
sometimes I would say my heart is as dark as my mind is. Because let me tell you, if I told you, I know we're talking about mental health, but if I told you half the things that pop into my mind, I would wind up in a straitjacket again, and that was not fun the first time I was in it.
Mhm.
Yeah, I mean, I
I
understand. Yeah.
I'm very blunt and I'm very open about what I have faced and what I've experienced, but I'm thinking about our black and brown neighbors. Like that
Mhm.
is my biggest direct focus.
Yeah.
We've been doing a series on the death penalty, and it's taken a lot out of me.
Yeah.
It opened my eyes a lot. It is
Yeah.
11-part series, 11 episode series that'll be coming out hopefully soon. I got to sit down and start editing it, but shameless plug. But anyway, I'm gonna chime back out. Gwen, let's dive into a little bit more. I know we're kind of coming up on time here in just a little bit,
Yeah.
but
Just a
we
little bit more. I
we have a
wanna
little bit
ask
more time.
Matt.
Yeah,
Yep.
feel free. I'm gonna shut up now. I know it's my
Thank you for
show,
sharing.
but I'm gonna shut up now. It's all you.
Well, thank you again for sharing that, Matt. And
Yeah.
yeah, I actually, same with education, and not knowing things. And I know you even said growing up in the the home that you did, and with the viewpoints and certain values that you don't feel like maybe you align with now. Um,
Mhm.
I think it's very it just shows again your bravery to face yourself and your identities, and to also embrace that and be open about it, because I think it says a lot, and it's an amazing example for people who are listening and who are looking up to you. And I'm not surprised you have such an amazing, loyal fan base because of, the things that you share about yourself. And I know I'm definitely one of those people who are inspired by you and your journey. And speaking of your journey, I know we've touched a bit about like being a creator. And I just kind of want to talk to you about like what being a part of this creator community um, has been like. And I know there's a lot of different branches of groups of people that come from that. But you know, what is, you know, um, how has being a part of this career, I cannot speak. How has being a part of this creator community influenced your own content and platform? And what does Matt Gordon at USMC Angry Veteran have next in store? I want to hear what's he got cooking up.
Yeah, yeah. So how has being a part of this creator community influenced me? Well, I've definitely learned a lot. I kind of, when this platform, again, like most people, I never intended for this, right? I never intended any of
Right,
this.
right, right, right.
Um, and when my platform started to take off, I definitely spoke out of my ass a few times. Uh, you know,
Oh,
uh,
me too.
and I made a promise to myself early on that if I get called out for something, I'm not going to get defensive about it. I'm going to sit back and I'm going to listen, and I'm going to learn. And thankfully, I had some wonderful Black creator friends of mine that would be like, "Hey, Matt, I know what you're trying to say, but this isn't the way to do it." I had some wonderful Jewish friends of mine that would be like, I know what you're trying to say, but this isn't the way to do it. And instead of getting defensive and be like, I didn't mean it that way. I sat back, let it just kind of wash over and say, you know what? That's 100% correct. Uh, I know what I was trying to say, but we recognize, and it's said a lot, that impact is greater than intent, right? And so, what I meant to say and what I said don't always line up, right? And when you get called out, instead of getting defensive and being like, well, I didn't mean it that way, and I didn't mean it that way, and that's not, be like, you know what? Thank you for taking the time to tell me where I stumbled, because now I can grow as a person. I can be better the next time, right? I know something now. For instance, this happened to me recently, and it's why I've been referring to the Iraq and Afghanistan and Iran region as West Asia and not the Middle East anymore, because I found out recently that saying Middle East, that's colonizer language,
Yeah,
right? So
yeah,
the British Empire, going from Britain all the way to India, India was the Far East, right? And then the Middle East was right around, the Iraq and Jordan and Iran region, but it's colonizer language, right?
yeah,
So now I've been making a very concerted effort to not say Middle East anymore, but say West Asia region, because that's what it is. It's the West Asian region, right?
right.
And so, these are all things that I probably never would have learned. I never would have been taught if I wasn't a part of this type of a community that took a moment to, and again, let me just say this also. Our Black, brown, indigenous brothers and sisters that are out here, they don't owe us this education. They don't owe us their time. They don't owe us their mental sanity to come out and say these things. But because they're doing it, we owe it to them to say, I see what you're doing, and I'm going to be better because of it. Right. I never
Absolutely.
expect anybody to take any time to me, a white man, and say, hey, white guy, this is where you're wrong. But I am so grateful that there are people out there that are willing to educate me on things that I know that this American education system didn't educate me on. And so all of that is, part of what being a part of this community is for me. It's education, it's elevation, like Consciously says, education is elevation. And I've learned more in the 3 or 4, oh Jesus Christ, no, 6 years, fucking hell, 6
I
years
know, right? I know.
that I've been on social media engaging with this community. I've learned more in these 6 years than I have in the 38 years or 34 years before. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And that's
I
all
definitely,
because of
yeah.
people in this community.
Yeah, and I definitely know what you mean and understand. I mean, there's so much I've learned and had to educate myself about. And
Mhm.
yeah, I just think it's incredible to be a part of the community in this moment and to be close to people like you. And, of course, just, I mean, the moment I got connected with Zachary before we were in Rise Above Justice movement, I couldn't have been gotten to that moment without being part of the creator community. And it just helps me stand even further. I like always was someone who like knew what I wanted to say, but now it's like I'm learning how to say it and
Mhm.
like the correct educated way.
Mhm.
Um yeah, and there's so much to learn too. And I always say you can't come into the world knowing everything, but I think it shows your morality when you find out the information and it's like, what are you doing with that to like
Mhm.
help yourself grow and those around you grow?
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm happy, so thrilled to have been connected with you. And
Same.
yeah. And I guess, one of my last questions, Matt, is what gives you hope today? Because there's a lot to feel like shit about, but what's something
There is.
that keeps you going?
Um,
Or a few things, however you want to answer.
yeah. So right now, the thing that is bringing me joy in life is the Dungeon Crawler Carl books.
Oh, what is it?
It's called Dungeon Crawler Carl. It is a it's a the eighth book just came out 2 days ago, 3 days ago. Wait, what is today? Today's Thursday? Two
Thursday,
days,
Thursday, yeah.
2 days ago. Came out 2 days ago. Uh and it's a book about this it starts off in this just like ridiculous kind of premise of the earth gets kind of terraformed uh pretty violently into this multi-level dungeon crawl like you were in a
Oh,
Dungeons and
wow.
Dragons game type of thing, right?
Yeah.
And it's all televised to these alien civilizations across the universe.
The
And
entertainment.
the apocalypse will be televised type of thing, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And it's it it starts off with this whole like just ridiculousness and like over the top pop culture references and whatnot. And it's super fun, and it very quickly turns into this story following our main hero Carl and his cat Donut um
Oh, how cute.
uh, through this dungeon where the showrunners of this whole thing are trying to put him into situations that cause him to lose some of his humanity and morality. And he has a mantra in this book that I have started saying almost on the daily whenever some bullshit comes down in the news cycle. And the mantra is this: it is, you will not break me. Fuck all of
Mm.
you. I will break you. And
Oh,
I
whoa.
have just been saying that out loud for weeks now. Just
That's
weeks.
empowering. Yeah.
And I love it. Like it's one of the things right now that I've like really found is bringing me a lot of joy, on top of just the amazing people like yourself that I have in my life that check in on me all the time and make sure that I'm doing okay, and especially when things get terrible. um I have a wonderful community of people around me showing all kinds of support, and I try to repay that as best I can. So those two things right there are what's keeping me going each day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I love that you answered that there's a book that a series is getting you through because I think that, they always say during hard times, art, music, literature, like that is something that helps people through. And
Mm-hmm.
it's so true being an artist. And I would say in a lot of ways, creators, like we create art in a lot of, it is its own art. I love this, the comedy sketches you do. you intersperse with your educational videos, and you also have an acting background, which we didn't
A
even
little
get
bit.
to talk about. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, a
yeah.
little bit.
I've seen photos. Yeah. So yeah, and you can tell, you're very comfortable on camera.
Mhm.
Um, but I think that I love that you mentioned that because, at a time when the arts and music, etc., are getting so devalued, especially by this administration, they don't couldn't care less.
Mhm.
Clearly, because I just read an article actually today or recently, it was devastating that they bankrupted the Kennedy Center.
Yeah.
Yeah, and shocker again, like they're
Mhm.
bankrupting everything else, but um, yeah, I think that that's something that people like cling to things that are a way to escape, but also is still relevant to the fight we're in.
Oh,
So,
100%.
yeah, thank you for sharing
Yeah.
that. And I think the last thing I want to ask you, Matt, is just kind of a fun question. I want to know what are Matt Gordon's favorite Star Wars? What's your favorite Star Wars character and your favorite Lord of the Rings character, and
Okay.
why? Just a
Okay.
fun off the wall question.
Okay. Star Wars is going to be, let me start with Lord of the Rings because Star Wars is going to
Okay.
be a little bit more tricky. Favorite Lord of the Rings character. It's probably a lot of people's favorite Lord of the Rings character. It's Samwise Gamgee, 100%.
Oh yeah,
Uh,
so good.
Sam is the heart and the backbone and just the moral compass of the entire fellowship. Without Sam, the entire thing would have been doomed. Samwise Gamgee is 100% who I try. His whole speech about in the Two Towers when he's sitting there in Osgiliath with Frodo and Smeagol, and he's talking about why do we keep going on, and that's because there's good worth fighting for, type of thing. Like
Yeah.
that
So
whole that whole character.
you do love the optimist.
I do. Yes.
Yeah. The
Yeah.
same, same.
I do. Oh, for Lord of the Rings, it's 100% Samwise Gamgee.
Yeah.
All day, every day. I will fight anybody over Sam. For Star Wars, though, oh my God,
I
that's
know.
that.
I was like, this is either going to be really easy for him or it's going to trip him up.
Oh,
I don't know.
oh God, it's so hard. Because I mean, there's so many great characters within Star Wars, and for different reasons.
Yeah. Oh, and can
Obviously,
I just tell our listeners too before you answer, Matt is like the most amazing collector of I mean everything, like just trinkets and what would you just call them collectibles, right? Your whole
yeah,
basement is full of
yeah.
Star Wars and Lord of the Rings and like
I got
it's so
I
cool.
got
I
a
wanted to take it home with me.
I got an astromech droid right there, and I've got the man.
Yes, yeah,
I've
yeah,
got
you can
Boba
see.
Fett's white variant helmet right there. I've got a Sith holocron right here. Like I like Star
Yeah.
Wars.
I was
I
like,
like
I see
Star
why
Wars.
we're good friends. Yeah.
Yeah.
But anyway,
Um.
continue.
So obviously, like General Leia Organa Solo. I love
Yeah.
Leia. She's
Badass through the Sim
fantastic.
Spider.
She's she's feisty and just always ready to throw down if need be, but willing to play the diplomacy angle if she has to. Like she's fantastic. But then on the opposite side of that, you've got characters like Saw Gerrera, who are completely freaking militant and like the absolute opposite end of the spectrum. And I love that character. But I love Andor, the kind of like behind the scenes kind of
Yeah.
espionage type thing that's just like building from it's literally a grassroots effort to build up the rebellion and just bring people in and fighting back in this very, like small and discreet way. You've got the people that are taking the fight to them nonstop. And then you've got people like Andor and Lucian and, all the others in the Andor series, I can't think right now, who are taking it in a, kind of very subtle behind the scenes, type of way. And Star Wars is such a wonderful just allegory for where we're
Mhm.
at as a nation right now.
Yeah.
In terms
You
of
always were like, watch the first three episodes of Star Wars to understand where America is right now, or like the
Oh
world.
yeah.
And yeah,
100%.
Marcus and I rewatched them because I mean, I always watched them as like a kid and
Yeah.
older too. I'm just like, God damn, these are so good.
They're so good. You
And
got
it's true. It's true what you said.
Obi-Wan who is like stuck on hope and it will get better. We just need to keep moving forward. I could say this is its own fucking podcast, Gwen. We
Yeah,
could sit
well,
here and talk.
we were definitely
I can deconstruct Star Wars characters all day. This could be a whole nother episode.
Yeah, we'll definitely want to have you back, Matt, and just thank you so much for taking the time. I love you, and
I
again,
love
you
you.
genuinely are one of my favorite people, and
Thank you.
yeah, always got a friend
Back
in
at
me,
you.
and I'm glad Zachary got to officially talk to you today
Yeah,
because
I know.
Zachary's
I'm
also
super
one of my
excited.
favorite people.
Super excited.
Yeah.
I don't. We're gonna end shortly, very soon. I don't want to take up too much more of your time, but I'm gonna be the Debbie Downer here. I am not into Star Wars. I am not into Lord of the Rings, but I will tell you what I am into. I am into Special Victims Unit, and Matt. Whenever I tell you when I said this, I'm sorry, Gwen. I have to say it again. Mariska Hargitay followed us on Instagram the other day, and
Oh shit.
I may or may not have had like a small heart attack.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Um, but I was like, okay, so she plays this badass cop on TV,
yeah.
but she's also just a badass human being in general.
Hmm.
She's a survivor, she's an advocate, she's a leader. Like uh, every day, you know how Instagram likes to go through and like unfollow people. I check
Oh
her
yeah.
Instagram to make sure she's still following us because I was like,
Love it.
bitch, you're
Yeah.
not
Love it.
unfollowing us. I
Yeah.
did not screenshot this. I did not post about it for no fucking reason. You're gonna make sure you're still following us, or you're gonna get a DM. I'm gonna slide into your DMs, be like, Mariska,
Yeah. Yeah.
Mariska, hello. I did find out that one of the candidates that's coming on the podcast actually has Chris Maloney
Oh.
as, or one that plays Detective
Yeah.
Stabler
Yeah.
as one of his constituents.
Oh wow. Okay.
So I thought that was really cool. And this
Yeah.
isn't like a bragging moment. This is just saying like building these authentic connections is
Hmm.
incredibly critical, especially in a time that feels like we are screaming into the void. I mean, we still kind of are, but we're not
Yeah.
doing it by ourselves. We're kind of doing it
Exactly.
alongside everybody. And those of us on this podcast, we know that, or
Hmm.
else this podcast wouldn't exist and talk about this shit that's going on. Because me and Gwen are doing a weekly show. I have another weekly show that's getting ready to pop up with one of our other, like I said, a team member, air quotes, team
Yeah,
member
yeah,
that's based
totally.
in Alabama, where we're going to do deep dives into like missing person cases and things like that. I'm a huge
Wow.
true crime junkie. That's
Yeah.
my thing.
Love it.
I love some good true crime. And then I would have to say my favorite, like, actual series would have to be Orange is the New Black, which, Natasha
So
Leone
good.
So good.
follows us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And she uplifts us a lot. We've been on her
So
story
good.
numerous times. I screenshot it every time I see it.
Have
But
they really? I didn't
yeah,
even know that's
she
awesome.
goes on and she shares quite a bit of her content nonstop.
That's awesome.
That's great.
And she's a
Yeah.
big fan of us. And shout out to her, shout out to Mariska, shout out to Miss Rachel. That was my other heart
Oh,
attack that I had.
I would have an absolute panic attack if Miss
Yeah,
Rachel
I
followed
think I'm
me
pretty
back.
sure Zachary called me
I
when
did.
Miss Rachel followed Rise Above and was like,
I
Gwen,
did. I was
Yeah.
you
I
don't
was on the
understand.
way over to my mom's. Matt, my mom lives like 10, 15 minutes away.
Yeah.
And I was on the way over here and I called Gwen and I was like, literally like sobbing. I was shaking. I was like, oh my fucking God, Miss Rachel just followed us. My mom's like, it's just Miss Rachel. I said, no, you don't understand. It's not just Miss
Your
Rachel.
mom.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
you got to understand, this is this generation's version of Mr. Rogers. Like,
Yeah.
Oh,
how we
100%.
were with
Yeah.
Mr. Rogers,
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
going at,
Definitely.
like they're going after the helpers right now.
Yeah.
Like, that's something
Yeah.
that he
Yeah.
warned against.
Hmm.
And, Gwen, you said it yesterday when we talked about Mr. Rogers. He was a lifelong Republican. And
Yeah.
he
He
was.
was.
And but he was one of those really, really, really good ones. And
Hmm.
if we could get more like that, if
Oh,
we
he
could
was
get,
empathetic. He
yes,
was
Yeah.
caring.
yes.
Yeah.
Like
And
that's
my
what we
mom,
need more of.
my mom has never been political a day in her life,
Hmm.
but even she understands what's going on.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. It would be hard. I mean, unless you're like so privileged, you live in a bubble, like some of the
Mhm.
people that we don't
Mhm.
know, but personally, but it'd be hard not to notice what's going on.
Oh yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah.
But other than that, Matt, how can people find you on social media and uplift the work that you are doing?
It's USMC Angry Veteran,
Woohoo!
literally everywhere. I mean, I think the only thing I'm not on is like Telegram and Truth Social. Uh,
Oh, you're not on True Social? Come on.
well, no, 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 I am, but I
I was
troll
gonna say,
over there.
I am
And
too,
I'm,
just not
yeah,
as
yeah,
Yeah.
myself
Just to
or
like
Rise of
yeah,
spy.
Justice.
yeah.
Just to
No, if
spy
you,
on
I'll just say,
them.
if you come across Donnie's golden toilet over there,
That's the one and only Matt
that's me.
Gordon.
I'm Donnie's golden toilet. Yeah.
And on that note, make sure to follow Donnie's Golden Toilet. And we love you, Matt. Thank you
I
so
love
much
you
for being
back.
here.
Thank you so much for having me. Thank you.
Yeah.